Ooh. Hello. Sorry,
Hello.
we're a couple of minutes late because
we
got carried away. Let me share my screen with Piccia. There we are. There's Piccia. I've got this fabulous little thing down here, Piccia, called a Stream Deck, and it enables me to press buttons and change things. So, for example, I can press a button and show what's on my screen, or I can press a button and show my webcam. Or I can press a button and show.
So exciting!
Show both of us.
It's the one that you were showing off at WordCamp Europe, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. There was a bit of that going on.
That made you look like an international DJ.
Oh no, that was just audio. That was just audio. Anyway, hello. Here we are. This is Piccia. She's joined us today because we did a. I don't know what we did. We did a webinar a little while ago, and we decided off the back of that that it might be quite nice for Piccia to spend a little bit of time with our community and go through some site reviews in terms of UI and UX. I've seen Piccia speak a couple of times on this particular subject, and it's really informative, primarily because Piccia actually understands what she's on about, whereas I don't.
Well, hopefully that's the case. And if anyone, because I don't want to look distracted, but if anyone who's listening is in my group Design for Geeks, it would be so amazing if you could share this live to the group, because I have been unable to do that yet, and I want to give all of you my full attention rather than not. So if anyone is able to do that, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'm sure I can share it later, can't I?
Yeah. The other option is to tell them to go to wpbuilds.com/Facebook, and that will take them to the WP Builds group, and it's being shared live in there. And I can see that just at the minute there's about 11 people watching it right at this moment. So hopefully we'll get a few more people coming on as we speak. Yeah, so here's Piccia. She gets UI and UX. I really don't. I went to see a speech that she did at WordCamp in London, and what I really found amazing was that people like Piccia have studied the sort of psychology of what goes into making design work. You know, in other words, why do people get drawn to certain objects and kind of font and color combinations? I'd never really thought about it like that before. I just thought, I like that and that's good enough for me. And then you actually have vocabulary to go around it as well, complicated scientific words which make it. I do. Yeah,
it's amazing.
It is. It's great.
No, it's hilarious because also you definitely have a natural flair for it anyway. Whatever you think about it, you do. Because also a lot of it, funny enough, is actually common sense. It basically really is common sense. Sometimes I feel like, we all suffer from imposter syndrome, but I particularly feel that when I think that's really obvious, isn't it? Because some things I just feel like common sense, but then again, not so. Every single time I say that, then I say, well, not really, is it?
No, yeah. Piccia, just a quick thing. Currently, we're seeing half of your face. Because
I'm noticing
just
that.
Wondered if you might be able to move to your left. Either move your camera to your right or move yourself to your left slightly. There you are. You're right in the middle now. That's
better.
Yeah, it's much better.
So now I need to slightly move the screen where I'm gonna look at the website.
Okay.
It's never easy, is it?
Okay. Well, whilst you do that, I'll just say to Mike Davies, you can have both my kidneys. Sorry for being late. I can't really help it, in all honesty. The other thing I'm going to say is sorry if there's like a noise in the background. I'm in my sort of attic, and the sun is beating down upon my attic and creating what can only be described as a horribly hot room. So I've got my fan on, so I apologise for the whirring noise in the background, but I can't cope without it. And what I'm going to say is, Piccia, if you want to click those buttons to share your screen, we can crack on and
let's do that.
Get stuck in.
I need to do that weird thing.
Yeah, I'm going to make your screen go full. Hopefully everybody can see Piccia. I know that
I'm in my Skype screen so that I'm able to share screen.
Yeah. I know that the Facebook live feed is about 30 seconds behind the.
Yes, it is. Did you say that Matt Davies is watching?
Matt Davies is watching.
So he's in my Design for Geeks group. So Matt, it would be amazing if you could share this to the Design for Geeks group if you get a chance.
There you go, Matt.
Yeah.
Can
you see my screen now? Because I can't see what you see.
One second. I'm trying to find the right app now. Yeah, what I can see is something saying, turn your website into a customer getting machine.
Yes, and that's our friend Mark Perso.
Ah.
So, yes, who's asked for this review. So shall we get started?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just hand over to you. I'll field any questions which come in a pertinent manner in the Facebook group, but unless you want me to interrupt, I'll just let you go for it. So without further ado, here's Piccia.
Great. You can interject whenever you feel like it. So first of all, this website, the first impression is it looks great. You know, I love it. So funnily enough, I've just created a freebie for everyone later if you're interested, which is 7 UI tips for better UX, because basically I always talk about user experience and being the thing that everything should start from. But even when you haven't planned a website with a UX process, there's a lot of fixes, there's a lot of things that you can do to improve the user experience by looking at the UI. Now, I'm sorry if I look in the opposite direction to where you all are, but it's the only way I can look at the
We can only
website.
see your screen now. We can't see your face at all. So.
Great, perfect. Okay. So later on, I'll provide you the link where you can download this freebie. So basically, this website, first of all, looks great. I think that font is the heading font, the turn your website to a customer getting machine font, is a Google font that looks incredibly like a premium font. Actually, it probably is the premium font. I haven't inspected it. Well, it's a beautiful font that I love to use as well, because it's got especially really lovely italics. If you look at the italics here in a Contact Us, it looks lovely. Now, I love the yellow contrast. I love the fact that it's got a very unified brand look, and it's got the contrast in the yellow. That's very subtle and very clever, very impressive. The red that I've got in the background. This is the first impression. I love the fact that it's all, because I have a pet peeve, which is central alignment. It's not, and it goes further there. I mean, there are reasons why. I won't go into that now, but if you look at the left alignment, it's perfect. The logo aligns perfectly with the heading and with the other paragraph and with the button. So hats off for that. And the left is typically where us Western people land with the eye first, and it's very interesting if you install Hotjar or rather heat maps on your website. It's really interesting how you see that that's where people go normally. So put the things that interest you the most, the message that interests you the most, put it there. Also, the message is important for user experience, because it tells me exactly what I get when I come here. I can turn my website into a customer getting machine if I come here. So that's very, very clear. We hope people like you get more customers and grow the businesses. Web design and marketing done properly. Super clear what I need here. Now, I also really, really like the fact that there's an image in the background, but Mark has darkened it enough that the text is legible. So I would, however, also, especially because there's text on it, I'll confess that before actually looking at it, I thought that this was I don't know why I saw a van. I've just realized that it's a computer. I thought it was a van. I don't know why. Oh, but maybe it's got the words, I don't know. Anyway, so I would make it even darker, because basically the point is that if you use a background image, you're only using it as texture. You can't let much visible of it, because otherwise it really compromises the understanding of the message. So clearly here you want to, Mark, you want for people to understand that you work on your computer and that you build websites on the computer, which is great. But the image doesn't do anything for me to understand, but I do find it still a little bit distracting. So I know that if you make it any darker, it will probably be just a texture in the background. And that's exactly what it should be, because otherwise it just is confusing and I go slightly into cognitive overload. Another thing that I would do is I would drastically reduce the line spacing, the line height of your main heading, because it's way too distant. Someone who's dyslexic would have problems with that. It would be very difficult for them, because they would see it as 3 different items instead of being the whole one heading. Then to have a video there, I think, oops, what on earth is going on? It's because I largely lose control of my machine when it's very hot and when I'm sharing the screen. So I'm wondering, can you see that? Okay, fine. But I did notice the yellow thing even with the drift box. The drift box is discreet enough and I can just close it, which is nice. What I would do is, because the video is black and white, which is very stylish, but you have a black and white image in the background, so I would give it a border or something to make it stand out more. Otherwise it just doesn't stand out enough. It gets a little bit lost on the background. But all in all, also you've got a call us, you got a number there, and it's very clear what the top navigation top bar does. So really clear, really great with these things. Now, and here we go. So center text, I'll because I've got it here, I'll take the opportunity to say a little bit why I don't like center text. It's because it's lazy layout, because whenever you center anything, if you do a centered layout, your only option is to basically put things one above the other. You just stack things, that's it. And that's fine for mobile navigation, but otherwise when you have a little bit more real estate, I don't see why you would center. Also, so you don't direct the eye, you don't use the layout to your advantage at all. But in the case of centered text, that's really bad to keep people's attention. First of all, lines tend to go too wide. This is borderline. And then you have ragged lines on both sides, so I have nowhere to rest the eye, and it starts becoming really difficult to pay attention. When you have a really short message like this, it's more acceptable, but fundamentally there is no good reason why you should center text. It's like every sort of UX and UI guru is very clear about this, and I've always had a personal hatred. Even when I was making books, I just didn't like it. The animations are really nice because they're very subtle. I would also recommend, I know that transparent buttons are very elegant and they go with the website style, but they're not very good for UX and for UI, because they don't look interactive enough. And you can easily miss them, especially against a busy background. Whenever you have something that is interactive, that performs a function, you should differentiate it more. So maybe if you want to keep it, at least make the hover state a bit more obvious, because otherwise it's not clear enough. And I would also differentiate view portfolio from view gallery, unless they're the same thing, because I don't understand the difference, and that's a bit disconcerting. So again, here it's centered. Something like this is kind of all right, because I understand why you would center it, because you've got 3 elements, so it's symmetrical. So this is fine, and this so these buttons are a little bit more interactive, but I tend to prefer things that, so I would do a system if I were you. So decide what buttons does what, and do a style for that. Now we have quite a few websites to look at, so I'm slightly running through it, but I just want to say a few essential things, which I will probably keep repeating. So here you see the image is better. I feel like it clashes less with the front. Not that it did very much, mind you, but it's because then the three images of the three testimonials are much darker. Now here you can see that with the centered text in the testimonials, it gets very ragged, and then you end up with things like only one word on the last line, which is like this poor like little orphan child. So I just would avoid it. I just would. And if you look at all the how ragged the whole line is, it's not restful for the eye, and it's not good for comprehension, and it's not good for anyone with any learning disability. It makes it really hard for them. And here in the logos, I would recommend, again, it's a little bit cognitive overload if you keep all the colors, because logos are all different. They all look completely different. So what I would recommend is making them in the same sort of grayscale color, so that there isn't, the eye doesn't need to change, absorb so much color information. Already I've got all the different shapes and the different words, and then if you add the color, you get into cognitive overload, because basically the best UX is achieved when you make your visitors think as little as possible. See the Don't Make Them Think book by Steve Krug, which is still a classic. So I would recommend doing that, and you will have much more visual harmony, especially because your whole website is kind of black and white. So that would make complete sense to make them see this. I like this better. I like this button better. It looks much more interactive because it changes more. It's a bit less subtle. So see here, for instance, here is kind of almost a right level of darkness of background. I know that it feels really dark, but really you need to make a decision. Do you want for people to see the image, or do you want them to read the text? And if you have an image, when you have an image that's meaningful, then you shouldn't have any text on it. If the image isn't meaningful, then what's the problem? So that's why then you'll hear me, as soon as we get to a slider, which we will, you'll hear me, I'd go off on one. So because all these observations are mostly also about accessibility, and accessibility is a legal requirement. Not only that, but you should listen to me, because I am older than I used to be, let's say, and I can see much less. But that doesn't mean that I, or people my age, don't have the money to buy your services. So you want to service us, because young people will see anything that you put in front of them. But people over, actually not even 50, actually 40, will have visual issues that you probably, Mark, are too young to know about, but you want our money. So basically you need to make things clear. But all in all, it's a great website. I love it. It's so stylish. It tells me exactly what you're doing, and that's really good UX as well. And I love grids personally. I love how you've made it interactive, because it goes back to the black and white theme. And I won't even attempt to open it, because otherwise my computer will go bonkers. So so that was great, Mark, and happy to have, if you have any comments that I haven't seen, happy to have a conversation about that. So
thank you. Just first of all, thank you. That was great. I really enjoyed. I listened to every single word of that, and I was really really interested. And there was a lot of stuff about the line height and things, which I honestly wasn't aware of. But I take your point, and that was really well done. Thank you. I'm taking it that we're moving on to another website.
We are.
Great.
Because we have quite a few, and I'm sort of aware of that.
Okay.
But it was all in all a great website, and I think that you'll notice that actually my comments will tend to repeat themselves.
Okay.
Because these are easy fixes, and they are the ones that come up most of the time. Now this is another website that we're going to analyze. So I'm looking at it now. Okay. So the headline is very clear. It's centered, but see, I'm not completely, this is fine because it's only one line that's centered, and it's actually almost the whole width of the window, so that's fine. it tells us exactly what we're looking at. Professional headshot photographer in Harford County. So that's absolutely clear. So that's fine. I think that, though, although the grid is good because you see all these smiling faces, and it is, yeah, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not clicking on any links because my computer doesn't respond well to doing too many things at the same time when I'm doing a live video.
Fair enough.
So I would, it's good. So I'm on the window that you see is a 15-inch laptop. So, and the actual call to action is off, is below the fold, so to speak. Not that it matters anymore. People know how to scroll, but still, you don't want to give them any opportunity to think, oh, there's no, because it's amazing what people don't do when you then go on a website. So, I would also, I'm thinking, I'm actually churning, processing thoughts on this grid. I love the portraits. They're great. They're really lovely. You clearly engage your subject. I couldn't find the word.
It's okay.
But I would, again, it's a little bit of the case. I know this is really difficult, especially when it's our own work. It's really difficult to choose one image, but I almost think that you should, because otherwise, again, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a little bit too many things. And I find that maybe the one with a white background stands out in sort of maybe not quite the right way. I'm thinking that one big image using the negative space on the left, if you had it, with the heading on the left, would make you so much stronger. It would make for a really strong homepage, because you really want to show off. You're going to show off much more with one big image than 6 small ones, I think.
Piccia,
then people are going to be interested enough.
Could I just interrupt? Because Mike's asked a really interesting question. Mike Sale has asked that he's noticed.
Yes.
Sorry, scroll back so that we see the head. I don't know what you think about this, but he's said it's interesting that some of the heads you can see right to the top of the head. In other words, you can see all of their hair, and then a couple of them are sort of snipped off at the top. And wondered if there was any sort of anything peculiar in your thoughts about that. Whether the actual content of the image is important to have continuity, or whether that probably doesn't matter as much.
No, I don't think it matters for a photographer. As far as photography goes, because it's a little known fact that I am or used to be a photographer, so that helps. But if the heads were chopped off anymore, then you would be losing information. But I don't think you are. And I think he's saying in terms of visual continuity. Yeah. It didn't bother me. Okay. I tell you also why it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me because they're both women. And the thing is that we don't know if this grid is chopping anything off. And I don't dare click.
Okay.
We may never get back from that particular hellhole. And I actually love it because it makes me feel closer to the subject. Anymore, and I wouldn't do it, but like this, it makes me feel closer to the subject. And the thing is, what's really clear from all these images, even though they're corporate shots, my God, I would have you take my photo, because you clearly create a rapport, and therefore, and it shines through. So make it really shine and pick one. Pick your favorite image, the one where you had most fun, where you liked them the most. I like the logo very much. Super simple. Clearly, it's a headshot. Brilliant. Really, really good. Again, it's really clear what he does. This is a niche. He's specializing. And also it gives us a specific location. So I hope that your SEO is done well, because I'm sure that I'm sure that's great. So again, here, so here there's a mixed alignment. So you see, if you could have one big image here and then afterwards the grid. So that would make sense. And you confirm what you say. They're modern, relaxed, and professional business portraits. They're great, really, really great. So what you're doing here, you start having a slight alignment problem, because you've started with center, but now you've aligned to the left the Connecticut headshot located in Avon, blah, 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 paragraph. And while I advocate that, again, you need to make a decision. And I understand why a centered layout calls for centered text, but that's why I say, normally I just say, don't particularly do centered layouts. So this is a sort of a longer conversation, and I'm not saying that necessarily is great. You don't need to take it that far. This is fine. You click white space, which is great. There's lots of room. There's loads of breathing room. See, again, perfect. You have, so here it makes sense that the text is left aligned, because it doesn't clash with the title and the button the way it does here. So I hope that you probably got your SEO right. So see, these testimonials work for me because they're aligned. But I love the white space. I love how much breathing room you have. I love how you're not afraid of having enough space for things to breathe. I assume that if you click on schedule, so the calls to action are all in the right places. If anything, I would give it a bit more. I would make it. It's absolutely fine, almost as is, but I would be a bit more daring. I would make your photos shine more, honestly, and it's very easy to do that. You could do that, the initial section, because I promise you that people will go, wow, and then you could have a grid, and the grid could be followed by another big image, and then you could have another grid, and people would scroll down because you know it is really, really good. And I'm not sure here if this is a one-pager, but like I said, I'm not going anywhere else because I'm afraid that my computer will get completely stuck. Are there any other questions or anything?
No, that was all. And Mike just confirmed why he said that. He was saying that the reason he was questioning was because of the fact that this guy's reason for being, if you like, his raison d'etre is to take headshots. So I guess he was maybe thinking, you know, if he's delivering headshots, it's a bit of a bit peculiar that some of them look one way and some of them look the other. But that, like you said, that might be the sort of the thumbnail generation of the whatever system that he's got. Yeah,
or it could be a choice just to make you feel closer to the subject. So Mike, in case Matt hasn't shared the video yet, maybe you could do that.
Okay, Matt, so you've got another job.
I mean, Mike, well, because he's also in my group.
Oh, okay.
So I am really curious whether what this schedule will look like. And I would also say, I like the fact that you've used the same typeface. No, you haven't. Okay, no, you haven't. No, you haven't. So the typeface for the headings is not the same typeface for the body copy, and I wouldn't recommend. Actually, I've now identified 4 typefaces. One is in the logo, which is fine. You're allowed to have a different typeface in the logo. Then you have another one in the button, which looks a bit like Futura. Then you have another one in the headings, and then you have another one in the body copy. And I can tell that it's a different one. I thought, because the body copy and the heading are very similar typefaces, but I can tell that they're different from Vital Clues. I thought maybe it's a different style of it, but it's not. I mean, a different like weight, but it's not, because if you look at things like, you look at the T is very different, the A is very different. So I definitely don't recommend this. First of all, for resources, because that's also it affects speed inevitably. Even if they're Google fonts, it actually still affects speed, and it makes things look really confusing. And actually, these 2 typefaces are not even different enough. So when you use a different typeface in the headings to the body copy, you want to make it really, really different or the same. But when it's the same typeface, then you need to use a different weight or a different style, or you need to capitalize. That's what you need to do. But if you use too many typefaces, then you probably confuse people, and you create a sense that it's not as professional as you might think, because it creates a visual confusion, even when the typefaces look very, very similar. And also, why would you why would you do that? Why would you stretch your website's resources? You have big images, or you should have big images, so I think you should spend your resources there and not with typefaces. So my recommendation is always to use one typeface, which typeface means family of fonts. So within a typeface, you can have different weights, you can have different styles. There is more than enough, especially even if you use Google fonts, because most Google fonts these days have hundreds of different weights and styles and things to choose from. So even so, I mean, on my websites, I tend to try and use only two weights and styles. You know, if I need bold or if I need italics, then I'll use that. But I tend to do it with just two weights.
Just a couple of things before you move on, just because interesting because of the nature of what we were talking about a moment ago with the images of the headshots. Jan Rikus Janssen, I hope I've pronounced that, Jan, sorry. He said that when you actually click on the headshot, which I know you're not going to do, Piccia, a modal pop-up appears, and apparently the resolution is significantly better, and he said the photos come to life all of a sudden, and so the grid, the compression that's been applied on the grid kind of pauperizes and makes those images look less good than they are when they're fully popped out. So that's an interesting comment. And also Rawanak Hajela said the headshots look nicer if you go to the original link. So I think he's basically saying the same thing. Go and check out the URL at the top to go and see what we're on about. But that's interesting, you know, that you have to click to get the best image. So maybe
there you go. And how many people are going to do that? Because I think that and that is basically, it's UX driven by the UI. So if you decide that your user interface to display your photos is going to be a grid, that doesn't show them at their best. You're relying on people to click on it to see them in their better version. So because I really think these are very good quality photos, I would have a really boom, impactful, huge background image that's a portrait. And with the negative, if you need to flip it, you know, whatever, with the negative space on the left, and you place your heading there, and you make sure that the heading doesn't go on any faces. And in the mobile version, you put the heading at the top and you push the image lower. That's what you do. Never ever have text on a face, please. Just let's make sure that we don't do that. So and I think that if you do this, because this is, you know, it's a perfectly fine website if you want, but I think it's missing out, and it's sort of relying on people taking action, which is something you can never rely on.
Interesting as well is that the three people that made comments, because Brenda Michelin, she also said that she thought the images looked less good, shall we say, in the grid setup. So that harks back to what you said about selecting one and really beefing it up and making it look enormous. And, you know, if that's what you do, show off your best photo. And interesting. Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for the comments, guys, appreciate that. I can see how this could become from a sort of it could become really easily, with just a few fixes, a really impressive website, because the quality of the photos is great. And actually it's Sheshu, I think I forget how to pronounce his first name, but I know this photographer, and he's shown me other websites that he's done with like teen portraits. They're brilliant. It's like they're environmental portraits that really, it's difficult to take photos of teens without being naff, and it's difficult to take business portraits, corporate headshots without them looking naff. These don't, and that's a lot to say. So I think that this could be a really stunning website. Fabulous, thank you.
So let's move on.
All right.
To WP Noise managed WordPress hosting, which is something that we're all interested in. So again, okay. So this is I'll start from the good things. So the good things is that, again, it's very, very clear. The contrast is good, because everybody is so worried about not doing too much contrast between text and background that now these days a lot of websites are not legible because there isn't enough contrast. And I think this it would need to be tested in a specific text contrast checking website, but it looks very good to me, and I'm very fussy with my eyes because I can't see anymore. So so that's really good. It uses 2 different typefaces, which again I wouldn't do, because I know that this typeface has lots of different weights. There's no point having two different ones. And I'm not a fan of slab serifs. Slab serifs are the serifs that have like square serifs, and I'm not a particular fan, and I don't know how it works here, but this could be personal taste. So anyway, 2 fonts is fine, it's not too bad, but I wouldn't. I would just use 1, because the problem with this page is that it's trying to say way too much. So I think that most complete managed WordPress hosting for everyone is very, very clear. It tells me what it does, and it should be a big heading, and you should have whatever you want. You should have like even just, you know, a really big heading with almost just white space on this bit that we're seeing. I hesitate to call it above the fold, because it's a really old-fashioned expression that is not really relevant anymore, because everybody now looks at things on mobile. But I think that most complete managed WordPress hosting for everyone should be the first and only thing that I see. Then anything else that you put there is sort of, if you want me to do something, if you want me to show me the specs, if you want to show, you need to pick one thing that you want me to do. Do you want me to check the pricing? Do you want me to do that? If you want me to do that, then put a call to action for that. But that needs to be the only thing in the so-called above the fold, because I get completely confused. I don't know. And actually, I had seen this before. I knew what it was, let's say, because I'd seen it on mobile, which is a completely different experience. But that's what I want to know. Right now, I'm sort of bombarded by way too much information, and I don't know what to look at. I wouldn't go for it, because also there's nothing for me to actually do. You always want to put something for people to do there. They so-called call to action, and we saw that Mark had it, and the Hatshots website has it. So however effective they are, because one thing I wanted to say about, I'll say it in general about calls to action. You need to make the call to action on your website a really easy action to take, because even putting schedule a photo shoot is way too much. How many people, I'd be interested in seeing the conversions, because how many people are going to actually click on something that says schedule a photo shoot? How many people are ready to book a shoot with you when they've only just arrived to your homepage? Something interesting happened to me. I had a really low bounce rate on my Design for Geeks website homepage, because I had a really easy call to action. It was something like take a free course, you know, something that didn't. And now I had, the call to action was, because I'm promoting my UX course, the call to action was, I want the UX course, which was paid. And so I had, my bounce rate went up. And I just thought the other day, because I was discussing it with Mike Sale, I thought, well, it needs to be something easier. And now I've put something, the button now says, the call to action says, tell me more about the course. That's a bit sort of lower entry level, you know, because people who are not ready and don't know me, maybe they'll go, yeah, there's no risk here. Do you know what I mean? Whereas schedule a photo shoot or I want the UX course are high level risk if people don't know you well enough, even if they do. So I would say here that if you want, you know, WP Noise, whatever you feel is your strength and you want people to know about you, go there, because you have a lot of competition in the managed WordPress hosting space. So what I would do is that. I love that you love white. I love white websites. It's great. So do that, but make the heading really big. And then when it comes to the various features, we always say, you know, these are features, not benefits. Let's talk about the benefits. But above all, you're centering the text on teeny weeny things that have no division between them and they're very close to one another. So the eye has to, there's no anchor, absolutely zero anchor. So I like the fact that you're using a grid. but use a visible grid. And again, if you can't avoid centering the text, do it. I don't know if you can, because all these layouts that are, let's say trendy, that that everybody's using at the moment, they sort of presuppose a centered layout. But I know that there are other ways. But anyway, so if you have to do that, give more of a visual division and an anchor for the eye. So make the grid visible and make it area, right? There's way too much. I can see 12 items. It's way too much. And then, so what are you waiting for? Our offer is unique. Check pricing. I assume that's what you want me to do. Yes, centering lists, absolutely not on, because the dots go all over the place. Look at this. I can actually see like a fish shape.
So yeah.
Yeah, for instance. Or also a vase with a very large base. So again, these are Gestalt laws. Again, you're ending up with the centered heading. You're ending up with only one word in the second sentence, which makes no sense. And Gestalt laws simply say, don't make my brain see two things where I should just see one. And you're making me see two or even three, because I'm seeing a shape, whether I like it or not, so I see it. And that distracts me from the meaning. You need to make my brain work as little as possible. And centered layout doesn't do that, doesn't help do that. It never does, hardly ever. So check pricing, I assume, should be your call to action. And I like how interactive it is. So, okay, here, I'm sorry, I feel like I need to rush a bit because we've only done 2 and it's nearly an hour.
No, this is number 3.
Oh, no, three. Okay, that's better. Yeah, I would. So if you do it like this, it looks like lowest price is your lowest price, rather than Kinster's or WP engine. And I know that you're making yourself orange and but basically it looks the same. There's no specific branding. I think you need to work on this a little bit to differentiate your offer more, because otherwise it looks like you're selling WP engine, Kinster, and WPOK and whatever. So I would work on that a little bit. But in terms of, so these are all UI issues that were fixes that we're looking at, but they will drive the user experience, because immediately you're going to put the user at the center if you give them only one message, if you make it immediately visible, and if you give them something to do, which is the check the pricing. But when you do the check the pricing, make sure that it's clear what you're talking about, because it's not very clear. So you need to work a little bit more on how to clarify that you're cheaper, that you offer the same as these other people, but you're cheaper. And I'm not going to do that by trying to work my way through all the million features that you have there. But having said that, we're all interested. Most of us, a lot of us use. I mean, in WP builds, everybody uses WordPress. So yeah, maybe people will check you out now. So
just a couple of things coming from that. Firstly, I think everybody was in wide agreement. The moment you loaded the page, everybody was a bit kind of overloaded by the amount of text and what have you. David von Gries has helpfully said that he's got his website, which is mapsteps.com, might be a different way to approach the headline as opposed to the way that it's done on there. And yeah, general agreement that we should sort of simplify that down. I actually was, whilst you were talking, I collapsed the browser and made it. I noticed there's 2 breakpoints, but only one of them makes it go into a single column. If you squash it down, you get the breakpoint, which changes the menu at the top, but the 6 columns remain even on like an iPad portrait mode, so that becomes virtually unreadable. So yeah, very good points I think Piccia's made there. That's great.
You know what I'm doing, what I'm gonna do at the moment, definitely with my websites is, and I think with anybody, I think that tablet is gonna be mobile more or less, because there's no point to, because of how difficult. I mean, I don't have the budget to check every single breakpoint for every single device, so I'd rather play it safe. Because ultimately what you're trying to drive meaning and sell. So I bet that you don't sell so much with this page because it's too complicated to even find the so that would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
that I think we'll all be happy to look at. Again, I haven't really looked at these. This is sort of off the cuff. But the only one that I did open for some reason was this one. And I think it's quite nice to look at right now, to think about, you know, sort of visualize being in the sea like this. So first observation is this is a slider, and you shouldn't use a slider. Basically, let me go into the reasons why you shouldn't be using a slider. First of all, even though this is subtle movement, it's still movement, and it makes me sick. Maybe I'm a bit oversensitive to motion sickness, but I know people that are even worse than me, and you're risking alienating them. And also, I can't stop it. I can't see a way of stopping it. There's no way I can stop this slider, which is really bad, because now you probably, if I'm feeling sick, and I might have rented a catamaran, I'm not going to do that now, because I'm like, I want to go away. Then again, although, I mean, it looks lovely, amazing, and I understand why you want the images to be the protagonist here, but again, there's you haven't decided on which image is more representative, and you need to decide on one, basically, and then maybe have more images further on. Just use one to draw people in. And I tell you why it's super inaccessible using a slider, for the reason that I just said, for the motion sickness, but also because a page reader for people with visual impairment doesn't have the time to read it. And you need to put, you know that you need to put alt text, don't you, to put an image description in there. So, which is also really good for SEO and not just for accessibility. So you need to make sure that a page reader can read that. And with this, there's not enough time. It's not possible. And then also, I can sometimes see the logo and the caption, whatever that means, exceptional, exotic, exhilarating, that's fine. I mean, that doesn't particularly mean much, but it's fine if you like it. That's why it's not, you know, it's just sometimes I can't read it, so what's the point? And there is, again, nothing for me to do. So I mean, I'm in because it looks nice, and maybe if I'm in the market for that, I will go further down, but I would put a call to action here, and I would decide what you want people to do. Again, is it the pricing? Is it the range of catamarans? Is it, do you offer tours? Because right now I don't know what the site does. I can imagine that it's about, I imagine that it's chartering big boats, but I cannot promise that that's what it is. Do you sell them, or can I hire a tour? How does it work? So I think you need to work on that, because being cryptic is nice, but you can't do that on the web because it doesn't drive sales. I used to do it a lot when I was a designer for print. I used to do really cryptic covers or posters, and that was like, that's cool. And now it's the opposite. You have to make things really clear. Now here again, it's my, you know, the pet peeve of the centered stuff, and you can see here again what I mean, because I now have basically centered alignment is not aligned, because I've got one edge for Xenia, one edge for charters, and 4 edges for the text, and then an edge for read more. And then you've got this awkward thing that you've got the number 50 all alone on the final line, and it doesn't even look like it belongs to the previous word, which it does. And then again, read more is never recommended, because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything in terms of SEO, and it doesn't mean anything in terms of marketing. And I'm curious as to what that does to your conversions, whether you're charting that to see what happens. This looks really nice. I won't say anything about centered again. I think there's too much. Oop, that's happened. I don't think that. I think that there's too much distance between the two lines. Again, for the observation I did earlier, yes, there needs to be a good line height, but it's too much. Also, be careful with caps. I like caps in titles. I use them, so I can't say that. But it needs to be for very short sentences, and you need to make sure that you use CSS uppercase for caps, because otherwise the screen reader is going to read it as EXCEPTIONAL, and you could have a very rich, visually impaired person that wants to hire your catamaran and they can't do it. So now, because I see here quality of cuisine, I'm starting to work out that this is you charter the boat and you get also, you know, a crew. But it would be better if you said earlier. Yeah, very good to have testimonials. But then I have two different layouts for, I've got this testimonial with a sort of speech bubble, and then below it's a different layout. I'm very confused. I thought that this, because it says impressions of the guests, I thought that this here on the right was a testimonial, but it isn't. It's Peter and Jade look forward to welcoming you aboard. So again, also, if you call them testimonials, don't call them impressions, because either call them testimonials or impressions of the guest, because that's also UX. I'm confused now. That's my so-called micro copy. It's the UX of copy. You need to make sure that you're consistent, and I'm really bad at that. I need to always check myself, which is why it's good to start from the beginning, which is why I'm so proposing UX as the beginning of everything before you even start designing. And I'm doing that for myself, and I'm doing the course, because it's much better if you set all these things as necessary from the beginning. Okay, so this is quite nice. Xenia, ancient Greek concept of hospitality. That's really nice. Nice to see. And again, you know, I think the text is readable here, so it's fine. A little bit high, line height and so on. So I hope that made it. I hope that made it clear. I also hope I don't sound too abrupt. I'm trying to. So you know, I hope I'm being nice. So, because it's, you know, it's beautiful and it's got all the ingredients to be a really nice website. Again, I'm just doing the home pages because otherwise it goes into too long, because I do this as I provide this kind of reviews as a service, and you get like an hour or two with me. Usually it's at least an hour and a half. And then you get a written report at the end highlighting all the issues. And so you have a lot of actionable points. And of course, it goes all over the website. But here we're trying to squeeze quite a few in 1 hour. So yeah, so that's what we're doing. And we're only looking at the home page. Now, I have, if I can, another. If my computer lets me.
Will it let you?
For another one, haven't we?
I think if we go quickly, yeah, we could probably squeeze another one in. I think everybody's still very engaged. We've got 23 people watching live. That's very nice.
Wow. That's great.
Well, in my group anyway, there's probably more in your group, I would have imagined.
I don't know. I don't try and look anywhere, because otherwise it would be... Okay, so this is lovely. What I'm seeing right now. So it takes a little bit to load. Not the website fault. It's my... Okay. So moving is stressful. Packing doesn't have to be. Pack happy. Brilliant. Don't you think?
Yeah,
it's great.
I love it. I love the service as well. I explored this and I thought, what a great thing.
Okay, brilliant. So I would, you know, you would have me here, and it's the call to action is absolutely crystal clear. Order bins, fantastic. Again, I don't. Nothing's ever going to make me like ragged lines on either side. And you've got the image in the background is way too busy. Again, you haven't made a decision as what you want me to see. And I think that this could be such an impactful homepage if you move the heading all the way to the left, keep it big, and still have the image if you really want it, but make sure that I know it's a really long image, but you can definitely extend it to the, you know, maybe use a gradient, extend it to the left, and do something so that you don't compromise the message, because the message to me is compromised. If you make, you can, you know, use the device of just making the image much darker, but actually this image is really nice because it does tell me a story. It is relevant to the story. with what we saw with Mark's website, it wasn't, obviously if you do websites, you do them with a computer. That's not that relevant. So the image was literally just texture. But here it tells a story. It tells me that when I order a bin, there will be this nice van coming to my house, and those are the bins that I will get. And there will be a smiling man giving me the bins. So it tells me a story about your service, and I like it. So this is what I would recommend. I mean, generally speaking, do not put any text on images that have meaning. But I love it, and I love how it's consistent, because the call to action on the top is the same, order bins. So I would make also the behavior the same. When you hover over, it's a lighter green, and I would do that. That's what I would do instead of making it go transparent, because things that go like this, it makes me feel like it's broken, like it's not interactive. Whereas when it changes color like this, I think it's interactive. Love the font, because it's playful, modern, but it doesn't look childish. It's really nice. I really like it. What happens below? It tells me how it works. We drop off, you pack and move, we pick up.
Nice.
Okay, I just had a doubt. You pack and move, and we pick up. So you don't pick up my bins full of my stuff and take them to my new home, do you? You come when I've finished using them. Okay, so that's not, for some reason, maybe it's me, am I thick? But I think the point is that if anybody has a doubt, you need to consider it, because if I had this doubt, anybody else might have it.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, are they a removal firm? Do they actually? No, I think they just deliver you boxes, and then you move, and then you give the boxes back. Yeah, you're right.
So I think that the messenger actually, I think that they have a hard task here, trying to making sure that people understand that. And I think they've done a good job. I wouldn't change anything. Moving is stressful. Packing doesn't have to be pack happy. Nowhere does it say that you're moving something for me. But what I would clarify is here, because you pack and move, we pick up the bins. We drop off the bins, you pack and move, we pick up the empty bins. Something like that, because otherwise I'm like, ooh, that's nice. You got to pick up my bins and take them into my new home. But then you know, the deep disappointment when you're not going to do that. So
maybe there's an upsell further down the page.
Yeah, exactly. There could be. But just to show, okay, I know all I've been on about is centered layout, but can I show you why? Look how many edges there are here. Look how much my eye has to wander to go to the next message. Do you see what I mean? It really is cognitive overload. It's not as clear information, because this is a fantastically clear website. I love it. I love the color scheme, and I'll tell you why the color scheme is really great, because I bet this is the same hue in a different brightness, which is exactly what you should do for accessibility. So well done. I bet that this looks fine when going through a color blindness test. So that's really great. So I think that the layout lets it down, because you rely too much on centering stuff. Look how, do you see it looks misaligned?
It is. The middle one's not in the middle.
No.
Where it says you pack and move, I'm sure that's not in the middle.
No, I think it's all I know it is. It is, because we know how these things work. I mean, unless there's spaces, it just looks misaligned, because there are so many different centered alignments.
Fascinating.
It's not. And then here, is this an image? Probably, because you have you using Times New Roman here, and that's not great. I would make sure that whatever this is, make sure that you use the same typeface. Or if this is too fat, use the. So this is a case where I don't know whether this is a different typeface. It probably is the typeface used in a copy. But it's a lovely combination, because look, they're a similar height and width. So they're both slightly fat fonts in terms of width. One is really thick and the other one isn't, and they just work really well together, because one is very, very, the headings font is very sans serif. It doesn't have any, it's rounded, so it feels warm, it feels welcoming, but it's very sans serif, whereas the other one has got many more things going on, and so it really works for me. I would make the distance between lines in the heading a bit smaller.
Okay.
As well. And also the links are a bit dangerous. I would just underline them, because the links, it's because the font is so thin, you can barely see that this is interactive. And when I hover over it, it hardly changes. And I think it's almost the same color as the copy. The safest thing is actually to do what I do is I use border bottom.
Okay.
Because with border bottom, it's you're sure that it's accessible and it works, because otherwise people won't know that this is accessible. So that's what I would do there. Again, messaging is right on point. Renting boxes saves money and trees. Absolutely. And it saves so much time, scavenging for boxes. I remember my first 10 years in London, I moved something like at least 10 times, but really at least, and it was a nightmare. And I would have loved this. And the second 10 years, I didn't move 10 years, which was great. And that meant I accumulated lots of stuff. And at the end of it, I had need for loads of boxes. So anyway, yeah, again, costs less than cardboard, order online. Again, I would change this. It's fine to use, invert it, but then invert it properly, and maybe use a darker green. So I would do that. Area we serve, perfect. We're local. Okay, these are and again, I would differentiate. I would create, maybe I would again, I'm all for white space. This is brilliant, but I would maybe put a different background to this, or even a line that doesn't close entirely, but just a division line, so that you know that those logos mean something else. So yeah, all in all, a great website.
Nice.
A great product. Yeah.
Piccia, that was absolutely fabulous. We've got well over 20 people watching, lots and lots of them making really nice comments, which you'll be able to read as you go back through the Facebook group, and you'll be able to sort of comment on them. But one thing I do want to emphasize, number one, and although this is going to be 30 seconds after the fact, I'm going to ask this question. Did you guys find that, was that useful? Was this something that you would like, to me in particular, and Piccia, I don't know if she's up for this in any way, shape or form, so I'm sort of putting her on the spot, and don't answer now, Piccia. Is this the sort of thing you'd like to see doing more of? Has it been useful? Have you found it intriguing and interesting? So I'll just float that question without any requirement for Piccia or anybody to really answer that. But I thought that was fabulous, really intriguing. I learnt a lot in the short space of an hour. But Piccia, I do want you to push your service that you're offering, because we've all benefited for an hour of your time, and I think you did yourself a little injustice. You only talked very, very politely about what you do. So would you just talk about that service that you offer a bit more?
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, so this is a UX and UI review service that I offer, and that basically goes into much more detail than this, and it goes all over the whole website, and it's actually really useful to do it together with the business owners or the web designers, because it clarifies reasons why certain things were done. So I always, I know that there are so many reasons why I always try, and I hope I'm not being unkind when I say things, because I know first of all, if I were to rip apart my own websites, I would destroy them probably. Also because there are so many reasons why one does a thing instead of another, or maybe it was a client saying something, but that's precisely the point. Then you can go back to them and say, look, no, I know you like center text, but you shouldn't use it, or that green is the wrong green for this reason, and you give them a real reason, because ultimately it drives sales. If people don't understand what you're giving them, or they drop off. So this service is like an hour and a half or two going over absolutely everything, and then in the end you get a detailed report with all the points. I've done it for Lee Jackson, for instance, for his for those clients of mine, but for people known and loved. in our circles. I've done it for Lee Jackson and for Events Engine. I believe he found it really useful. And then the other thing is that the whole point that I'm trying to make with this UX course that I'm building and selling at the moment is that all this these are easy fixes, because these weren't, these websites were fundamentally, all of them, they're good websites. But if you plan things from the beginning with a UX process, you will not have to make the fixes after, and then you will have a process that you can use again and again and again and again. And the whole point about it is that I promise it makes the build so much faster, and ultimately it drives much higher conversions because you're making things so much easier, and the first thing that you do is you think about the user. So I would put the links there, but I also, as a in celebration of this session, I also created a freebie with 7 UI fixes that are more or less, kind of the things that I've covered here, really. So I think it would be a nice takeaway for you to look at if you found this useful.
Okay. Do you have the the URL for that, or is there a thing that we need to do?
Yes. So it's yes, I do.
By the way, whilst you do that, I'll just give you some insight into what people have said. So, yes, following on from my question, Heinrich said, yes, more of that, please. Rick said, yes. Chris said, that was great, thanks. Mike said, I learned and relearned a lot. I would love to see some more of these every few weeks. Matt said it was fun to watch and listen to. Very useful, thanks, Piccia, said Craig. David said, please do this again. I loved watching you go through these websites, Piccia. Rawanak, we should continue this. And then Mike says, I need to go and work on my own site and bring the UX and bring it to UX Express. And then Matt is now conveniently telling me, what's the URL for this little freebie that you've got?
Yeah, so is it? It's so hard when you can't. It's so hard when you can't.
You can't remember it. Yeah,
I can't remember it. I should have made a note of it, shouldn't I?
Yeah, never mind.
Should have made a note.
Shall I?
I'm gonna.
Shall I add it into the comments after we've finished?
Yeah.
Or you can add it into the comments after we finish. Needless to say, Piccia, if you want to take your screen share off and put your camera back, that might be, if you can do that in Skype, there's a button somewhere which says stop screen share, that would be great. Let me know when you've done that, and I'll put us both back on, and we can wrap up. Yeah, Skype's UI is.
You know what we think of this? It makes me know.
There we go. Right. Okay. Let's put that back on. So yeah, that was really great, really interesting, really knowledgeable and fascinating, and I totally enjoyed it. So what we'll do is whenever we find this mystery URL that Piccia's got, we'll post it in the comments, maybe Piccia or me. But yeah, it sounds to me like people want more of this, but I will not put you on the spot. I know you're a busy woman, but let's see. Let's have a conversation after we finish the call.
It'd be really fun. I love doing this.
No.
So yeah, we could have it like a monthly thing.
Yeah. Well, let's have this conversation once it's ended. And but thank you so much. I'm going to press the finish button. So I hope you enjoyed it, everybody. Pleasure. And we'll see you all soon, maybe in a month, doing it all again. Thanks, Piccia.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.